Hello and welcome to our 38th Holding Space for Self and Others webinar. It's really lovely to have you here today. My name is Jackie Short. I'm the Director of Sydney Centre for Creative Change. And today we have a very special guest, Liane Morris, who's going to be sharing with us her midlife reset and ordinary transformation. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that I come to you from today, the Eora people of the Gadigal Nation, and pay our collective respects to Indigenous elders past, present and emerging around this wide land that many of us are coming from today. This is a very personal story that Liane's sharing today, and I know in all of the forums that we've run already, all the 38, there's an incredible respect for the voice of all of our presenters, and I know you'll extend that to her as well today. So I'm really excited to welcome you here, and I'd like to introduce her with just a couple of slides about who she is and how she comes to be with us today. Liane Morris was Mrs. Invisible, a menopausal, middle-aged, white Australian woman with a background in arts and media marketing, who in midlife had to reinvent herself in order to be seen again, to squeeze more juice out of life and to claim her right to her own dreams. Liane runs a copywriting and publicity business, writes for magazines, and is working on a manuscript titled Mrs. Invisible and Her Ordinary Transformation. Liane's transformation is still in progress, but she's keen to share her story with us today in the hopes that it will inspire us to be more visible and to love our ordinary lives as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce Liane Morris to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for that great introduction, Jackie. Okay, the first thing I want to say is I'm not used to doing this. So if you haven't guessed that already, so I'm new, I'm nervous, and anyway, off we go. So first thing I want to say is that I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a coach, I'm not a sociologist, I'm not a fashion and beauty expert, I'm not a doctor, a dietitian, or any kind of expert in the health and wellness space. I'm just a copywriter, a publicist, a marketer, and an aspiring author. I am here, though, to share my story because I want to reach other women like me who had given up. Right, so I had got to a point in my own journey where I was completely stuck. And I couldn't see a way forward in terms of, you know, my visibility with my weight journey, all of those sorts of things. I just couldn't see how I could change. And I discovered a few tools that enabled me to make those changes. And I know how hard that was for me to find. And so I want to share that with everybody else. Because and if I can inspire one person to make the changes and it's successful for them, then it's all worth it, because I've got nothing to sell. I'm just here to tell a story. So that's why I'm here. Now, I met Jackie, who talked me into doing this, at a writing workshop at Writing New South Wales. We'd gone along for a workshop in mind, body, spirit writing. Because I'm interested in writing a manuscript titled Mrs. Invisible and Her Ordinary Transformation. I sat next to Jackie, and when she heard about my story, she felt that it might resonate with everyone who's on here today. And so, yes, so then she talked me into doing it. Anyway, why is it called Mrs. Invisible and Her Ordinary Transformation? So Mrs. Invisible, in midlife, women often experience this invisibility. And the irony is that we're also more likely to be the people who are holding it all together for everybody else, right? So we have enormous challenges in midlife. We're busy supporting our own children. We're busy caring for elderly parents. We're going through the changes of menopause and the challenges that can bring for people. We're carrying an enormous mental load, and really we just don't have enough time for self-care. And many of us don't prioritize it. We're at the bottom of our list. So The other thing is that a lot of transformation stories are written by celebrities, or they're written by people who have you know, got over seemingly insurmountable odds or extraordinary circumstances, and yet, and everyone's looking for that quick fix thing, you know, they want to solve their problems in a hurry, and but nobody is talking about the ordinary, everyday, mundane truth of it all, right? And that's what I want to highlight, because the truth is very ordinary, and it's not particularly exciting, and it involves a bit of hard work, but that's the story. So I am an ordinary woman. I'm middle-aged, I'm post-menopausal, I'm white, I'm a mother of 2 teen boys, I'm still overweight. I used to be very much heavily invested into the wine mum culture. I was frumpy, unsexy, burnt out, and totally and completely invisible. Over the past 12 to 18 months, I've undergone a bit of a transformation. I've lost 25 kilograms in weight. I've discovered the joys of sobriety. I joined a choir, which might not seem very mind-blowing to you, but when I was a little girl, I used to want to be a singer. And me joining a choir now is my gift to that little girl that I used to be, right? It's actually quite a powerful, exciting thing for me. My little business is booming. I recently was accepted into an artist residency at Lighthouse Arts in Newcastle to work on my manuscript, which is really exciting. I feature in a series of Noom ads that are currently running on Foxtel. I've let go of some toxic relationships in my life over the last little while as well. I've learnt about how rewarding saying yes to things that scare you can be, like doing this webinar. I've made time in my life for self-care, and I have definitely and completely become more visible. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not so sure. Anyhow, so today I'll be sharing my background, where I got to, and then the tools and the strategies that I used to get out of that space. So here's the, everybody loves a good before photo. So here are 3 before photos. I actually found it really hard to find before photos because, surprise, surprise, I was usually the one behind the camera, right? Not in front of it. And which I'm sure lots of people can relate to. And also I was very good at hiding my weight as well. The middle photo there, which I think is the worst, very brave of me to share it, is of me presenting at the Australian Fairy Tale Society. They asked me to talk about fairy tales in performance, and that was actually one of the first, or it was the first time that I had said yes to something that really scared me, and I'd never done that sort of thing before, and so that was my first kind of visibility thing. And you can see how big I was. You can see that my eyes were disappearing into my head. My eyes have always been my best feature, yet they were kind of disappearing. So yeah, so those are my before photos. Everyone loves a good before. It's got to be good. Anyway, my journey. So once upon a time, I was a bit of a party girl, and I had a very glamorous career working in the arts and media. And I didn't meet my Mr. Right until I was in my 30s. And when we went to have children, we struggled, and for no particular reason. And I ended up on IVF, and that was a journey. And I'm not going to go into that, but that was a journey. But I was one of the very lucky, one of the lucky ones. And I had my first child when I was 40, and my second child when I was 41. And my body had taken a bit of a pounding during that period, and I kind of went really from being having my first children to going straight into perimenopause, basically. And I then spent a number of years kind of lost in the wilderness. We moved around a lot. My career took a massive hit, and I found myself just taking part-time jobs where I would park my ego and just do whatever I could to bring some money into the household. I could look around me and see I'd spent so much time concentrating on having children that by the time I kind of landed where I am now in this house here, in this location, I kind of went, wow, great. Like all my dreams have come true. I've got my kids, I've got my husband, got my little cottage by the sea. What comes next? Like, I'm not dead yet, right? Like, what's next? And during that period, like, I was drinking too much, and you know, I was kind of headed into menopause and all of that sort of stuff and all those difficulties. And in amongst all of that, there had been someone in my life who was quite toxic and had been for quite a long time. And when COVID came, I had an experience where we were all so excited when we came out of lockdown to see people again. And we went along to this person's house, and within 15 minutes, this person had shut me down and was really rude to me in front of my children again. And I could see this time that my kids were old enough to understand what was happening. And I thought about it, and I thought, I don't want them to learn a lesson that it's okay for me to be treated like that. And so I wrote this person a letter, and by the time I had written the letter, I'd stopped being angry. And I kind of realized that this person, for whatever reason, just didn't like me. And whenever I was there in that person's space, they would just be distracted by me. And it was much more comfortable for everybody if I just stepped away from that. And the result of doing that was that I no longer questioned everything that I did. I no longer questioned every decision I made through the filter of what will this person think of me if I do X, Y, or Z, right? So it totally freed me up to be the person that I was supposed to be. It was profound. The effect was profound. And I only mention it in this space because of what so many of you do, and the power of letting go of that stuff, those people that make you feel bad about yourself, right? It's such a powerful thing. And all my changes, I believe that was the catalyst, actually, was letting go of that relationship. I still have to see that person, and I'm perfectly nice to that person, but I no longer judge myself by that person. So anyway, moving on. One day I looked down at my scales and noticed that I was 115 kilos. Now, I had been on all the diets you can imagine, and I would always lose weight quite quickly, quite easily, but then I would always put it back on. But I wouldn't just put on the weight that I'd lost. I would always add in that little extra more. So over the years, through constant dieting, I had slowly got bigger and bigger and bigger until the day I looked down and I was 115 kilos. And I knew that I did not want to get any bigger than that. That was way over what I wanted to be. And I realized that I could no longer diet, that I couldn't even try to lose weight, that if I tried to lose weight, I was just going to get bigger. So even though I was unhappy in my body, I made the decision that I would never diet again, that I was going to have to learn to love my body the way it was. And that was hard. And I know there's a big, body positivity movement, and, we've got to love the body that we have and thank it for all the things that it's done for us, and, all that sort of thing. But that's hard. When you're 115 kilos, that's a hard place to get to. And but I was trying. I was really trying. And then I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you're getting fatty liver disease and you have to diet. You have to lose weight. So that sent me into a panic, and I felt completely stuck. And I can't stress this enough. I knew that if I dieted, I would get bigger, yet I was told I had to lose weight. So I was completely and utterly stuck. And so I went to a dietitian, and the dietitian basically says, just eat real food? Well, you know, guess what? I did just eat real food. I'm quite a healthy eater, but I also drank a bottle of wine a night. I also ate cheese and crackers and chips and chocolate and loved my pasta, and my rice may have been brown, but I did eat a big bowl of it, right? I wanted some kind of something from the dietitian to keep me accountable, and she flat out refused. So I walked out of the dietitian's room thinking, this is just not going to work. It's not going to work. Around about that same time, a friend of mine was doing weight loss surgery, and that had always been a step too far for me, but I was quite curious about it. So I asked her about it, and she said, oh, well, I've got my GP, my specialist, my physiotherapist, my dietitian, and my psychologist. And the second she said psychologist, I knew that that was the missing link, right? That was the bit that's the bit that's missing. And so I put a call out on social media. Like, I was looking for somebody, a psychologist, whatever, whoever, that could help me with the psychology of weight loss. And I couldn't find anything. And my sister-in-law, who is a scientist, contacted me, and she said, well, look, I've just had some success using this Noom app, right? It's all psychology based. And I knew, because she's super fussy, because she is a scientist, I thought, wow, well, you know, if she's saying that, it must have something good about it. And I'd seen it before, but I'd ignored it. And I ignored it before because it cost me, I don't know, about $200 or something. Totally happy about spending $1,000 on my son's soccer or $500 on my other son's guitar lessons or whatever. Not happy to spend $200 on my own health, right? Well, this time I was a bit desperate, so I went, okay, I'll do it. So I did. I'm very glad that I did. But anyway, so during this process, I've learned that toxic relationships free you up to be more yourself. I've certainly learned that dieting leads to increased weight over time. I've learned that psychology is the missing link in the health and well-being space. Prioritizing yourself is something only you can do, right? Only you can do this. No one's going to do it for you. So you have to spend the money. You have to take the time. You've got to do the thing, right? Because only you can do that. Saying yes to things that scare you can be very rewarding and can lead to lots of change in your life. And also the big one, this is the big one, and we're in midlife, people, or most of us, I'm imagining, that are here. We're in midlife. So if you don't do it now, right, if you don't become the person that you want to be, right, when are you going to do it? Don't be waiting until retirement, for goodness sake, because you might not never get there, right? Anyway, that's the lecture. Anyway, this is some after shots. And funnily enough, that middle one, I'm the heaviest. You know, out of those 3 photos, I'm heavier there than I am in the other 2 photos. But anyway, there's some after shots just to balance things out. Okay, so the tools that I used for me, and this is not an ad for Noom, right? It's not an ad for Noom. That's not what I'm doing. It's really an ad for mental health and for dealing with the psychology of weight loss and why people do the things they do. So the tools I used to do that, though, were Noom, the alcohol experiment, which is based on a book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, the Mel Robbins High Five Challenge, and creating visibility, seeing yourself and saying yes. Sorry. Changing habits for weight loss and health using Noom. So we've talked about my little light bulb moment, that how psychology is the missing link in our search for weight loss. Noom is based on cognitive behavioural therapy methodology, and I'm sure you people know more about that than I do. But the big thing is that there is a real kind of cognitive dissonance that happens, and that is, like, you've got your goal, you know what you want to do, you even know what you should do to get there, but you just don't do it, right? So we all rely on discipline, and we also know that we only get this much discipline every day, and that by the time we've used it all up, we just, you know, we don't do the thing that we should be doing. So Noom helps you work through that, and it's a really big thing. And the other thing that Noom does is it insists upon sustainability. So we're changing habits for good we're not just changing habits until we lose weight, right? So you end up with a new normal, and that's essential. It's just essential. Otherwise, the weight will just come straight back on. The way Noom works is that there are daily lessons, and this is where the psych stuff comes in. So I would recommend highly that everybody does those daily lessons every day. It's 10 minutes, just get up 10 minutes early and do them religiously. You know, sometimes they may be a bit naff, but that's where the juice is. That's the stuff that will help make change for you. It does track calories, and that's become quite contentious these days. People don't like to track calories. But my response to that is, you know what, you don't have to track calories forever. And you're tracking calories because you have a skewed relationship with food, and you need some kind of boundaries to relearn the way you deal with food, right? So tracking calories is part of that. They also use it like a traffic light system of green, yellow, and red, although I think it's just recently been changed to orange because they were criticized for using the color red. And it's where like the red or the orange foods are the things that are really calorie dense, but you still need a certain amount of them. So you get a certain number of calories to eat within that red zone. But those are things like nuts and stuff that are really healthy that you need to eat, right? Then there's a kind of group chat and a group coach and a personal coach as well. So that's what to expect from Noom. That's it kind of in a nutshell, really. Some of the things that I learned through Noom that really helped me are how to tackle all or nothing thinking. That was a huge one for me because I used to take quite a lot of pride, ridiculously, in saying that I was an abstainer, not a moderator, right? And that meant that I could give up something quite easily for an extended period of time, not forever, or I wouldn't have been in the trouble that I was, but I could give it up for a long period of time, but I couldn't moderate. One chip was too many because I would eat the packet. One glass of wine was too many because I would drink the bottle. And all or nothing thinking really sets you up for failure. It's not sustainable and it will hold you back. And a really good example of it is on a Friday night, you go out for a couple of drinks. You have a couple of drinks and you end up eating pizza, right? Because you've had a couple of drinks and it's kind of, you know, gotten rid of your inhibitions around your food. So you go, oh, what the hell, I'll have some pizza. So you have the pizza. And then when you finish your pizza, you think, oh, what the hell, I've had my pizza. Oh, I may as well have the tiramisu. So then you eat the tiramisu. And then in the morning when you wake up, you go, oh, I'm feeling a bit hungover. I'll have that really big, hot, fatty breakfast, right? So you have the really big, then you go, oh, you know, I've really blown it. So I may as well just go back on it on Monday, right? Well, that's just dumb. Like, it's really dumb because you just made one little mistake, a huge mistake, right? And also, it's not necessarily a mistake. So you eat the pizza. Who cares, right? Maybe not have the tiramisu. Maybe have a taste of somebody else's tiramisu, right? And when you wake up in the morning and you're feeling hungover, have a healthy breakfast, right? And go straight back into the good stuff. Don't wait till Monday to do it. So that's all or nothing thinking and how it damages your, you know, what you're trying to achieve. Another big one was the different types of hunger. And I was really guilty of this. So one of the big ones for me is mouth hunger, right? So sometimes you just want to taste the thing. And I used to think that I had to eat the thing, not necessarily just taste the thing. Yeah. So when you drive your kids through the drive-through at Macca's, right? And the kids all order up their Macca's meal. And normally in the past, I would have bought myself some little tiny thing, like, you know, I wouldn't have had a big meal or just a little tiny thing I would have ordered just because I wanted that mouth hunger. Now what I do is I still eat, but I just have 2 fries. So my kids, when I get their fries, they have to give me 2 fries. It's one for each side of the mouth so that my mouth fully gets the taste and I don't need to eat anything more, right? I'm satisfied with that. So that's just one kind of hunger. But another one is, you know, one of my emotional hunger cues was boredom, just sheer boredom. And so boredom is a really big one. It just gives you strategies to deal with that boredom so that you're not just stuffing your face with stuff. Another one was in Noom, they talk about your elephant. And your elephant is meant to kind of represent your emotional eating. And you're meant to become the elephant tamer, right? And that's kind of, you know, what they use. And that worked for me for a while. And I used to have an elephant on my screensaver on my phone to remind me. But more recently, the elephant sort of stopped working for me because I'd stopped trusting my tamer, which was myself, of course. And I developed my own. So this is not Noom, this is me. I've invented my giraffe. Okay, I have a giraffe. And the reason I'm using a giraffe is because it appears skinnier to me, like slimmer, right? And it has a long-term view. So it can see into the future, it can see that long-term view. And so now I have a giraffe. And when I'm tempted by something, I think to myself, what would my giraffe think now? What would my giraffe tell me to do now? So that's one of the things that I use. Another one is that exercise is super healthy for you and necessary for all sorts of reasons, but it is not necessary to losing weight. I've basically lost 25 kilos in weight without really increasing my exercise. And it's actually my next journey, my next stage. I want to really increase my movement and work on my movement. But it's not necessary to lose weight. So you can't use that as an excuse. And fat is not your enemy. You don't need a lot of it. And some high calorie foods are very nutrient dense and should form part of your diet. And cutting out all your favorite foods is not sustainable. And sustainability and consistency are absolutely key to the whole process. Now I'm going to move on to the alcohol experiment. This was the next stage for me. So I had been on Noom for a few months and it was working really well, but I had noticed a slowdown in my weight loss, and I knew why. And that was because I'd stopped drinking during the week, which was a great thing because I used to drink literally a bottle almost every night. So I realized that I was still drinking on the weekends. And so I would drink on the weekends and then I'd spend the first part of the week kind of fixing up the damage I'd done there. And then just as I was starting to get back on track, I'd have another weekend and then I would go again, right? So I thought to myself, well, I really need to look at my drinking habits and maybe I need to stop drinking for a month and see if that affects my weight loss, right? It's just a curiosity thing. And the universe was looking after me because around about that time I discovered the alcohol experiment by Annie Grace. And it was basically just, I signed up for a free 30-day challenge. And as part of that, every day you have to listen to like a podcast or a video, again, 10 minutes every day. And the thing was with that is that like I'd given up alcohol before and without a problem, but this time I was learning something different every day. And the stuff I learned, I can't unlearn. And so what I learned was the role of alcohol in obesity and just the incredible things this drug does to our bodies. Well, aside from just lowering inhibitions around food and, you know, the empty calories that you're drinking and all of that stuff, one of the mind-blowing things for me was that your body will burn the alcohol before anything else, right? So if you're drinking every night, your body is so busy processing the poison that you just put into it that it's not actually properly processing the food that you're eating, right? So that's massive, right? And it affects your organs and it interferes with your metabolism. You know, it stops you from sleeping properly. And we all know how that also affects obesity levels. It negatively affects your hormone levels. It is actually a depressant. All these really nasty, narky things that we all like to ignore, right, are true. So once I learned that stuff, the end of the month, I just didn't really want to keep drinking, right? Because I was a big drinker and I've been drinking my whole life, and I was known as the big drinking party girl. You know, it's part of my identity, part of my self-identity. And yeah, so it was, but it wasn't that hard. Once I learned what I was actually doing to myself, it actually was remarkably easy. Now, I do, however, still have the occasional drink. And this is the road less traveled, because most people who give up drinking try to give it up completely. But I refused to do that for one reason, and one reason only. And that is that whole all or nothing thinking thing, right? So I'd done the all or nothing thinking thing around food. I'd conquered that. And I wasn't going to simply replace that with alcohol and do all or nothing thinking around alcohol, because again, it sets you up for failure. So you constantly, I'm on one of those, you know, This Naked Mind Facebook groups, and I see it all the time. People have, you know, I've been, you know, alcohol free for 200 days and I broke it last night and I had a drink and I'm a complete failure and la, la, la. Well, what about the 200 days you didn't drink? You're not a failure. Like, that's just a data point, right? Like, so for myself, so how do I do that? I track my drinking. So there's an app that I use called Try Dry. There's lots of them around. I use this one, and I track every drink I have. So at the moment, I drink about probably twice a month. On one of those occasions, I will still be able to drive because I've only had one or two. And on the other occasion, I might drink a bit more, but you know, so what? And just by keeping track of that, it makes a huge difference. And it is the road less traveled. People actually find it in that whole all or nothing thinking space. They actually find it easier to say, I'm never drinking again, you know, because if you do drink, you have to have that choice. You have to have that decision-making process, right? You have to go, am I drinking tonight? Yes or no, you know? And that can be hard for people. And I acknowledge that can be really hard for people. But so far I've managed quite well. So the benefits of not drinking alcohol are that you're in control. It stops all the mood swings. You feel healthier, you look better, you're clear-headed, and certainly a lot less brain fog, I got to say, which I used to struggle with brain fog quite a lot. But there are some downsides to not drinking alcohol. And the biggest one is that you have to feel your feelings, right? So of course there's the reaction of others as well. That can be quite difficult. But because you have to feel your feelings, it means that you're not self-medicating anymore. And it can actually lead to further changes in your life because it uncovers things that you have unintentionally been hiding behind the alcohol, right? So that can be quite powerful. So the next one is prioritizing self and becoming visible. And one of the tools that I used for this was the Mel Robbins High Five Challenge. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard of Mel Robbins. If you haven't, look her up. And this High Five Challenge seems really silly, but it is incredibly intimate and can be very powerful. And it's simply, right, when you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror, you look into your own eyes and see yourself, right? We're not looking at ourselves to look at everything that's wrong with ourselves, right? We're there to be our own best friend. So you look into your eyes and you speak to yourself the way you would speak to your best friend. The whole concept is about letting yourself know that you have your own back, right? That you're there for yourself, right? This person, this being that you are, you're here for that person, right? And it can be, you can feel the self-love, right? Like you can actually find self-love there. Now, Mel Robbins says, you know, she hits the mirror with the high five, and off she goes. I don't need to do the high five in the mirror. It's not really my cup of tea, but the concept is being there for yourself and treating yourself the way you would treat someone else, right? Someone that you care about, because that's what we don't do, and it's so powerful. So I'd recommend it. It's completely free, like easy, and there's lots of, you can read the book, you can listen to the podcast, you can do all that stuff. And it really is about seeing yourself seeing yourself, right? Because how can we expect to be visible if we're not even seeing ourselves first, right? Got to do it yourself first. And another one that I use constantly and always have done for many, many, many years is gratitude journaling. It's an oldie, but a goodie. It just keeps your mind in the positive space. So even when you've had a shit of a day, excuse French, you know, sit down and think about the things that you are grateful for about your day. It could be as simple as it was a beautiful sunny day, you know, whatever it is. But it's just a good habit to get into because it reminds you constantly that there's always something positive to see. Also, I've said it before, saying yes to things that scare you, like doing this webinar, you know, create change, and they help you to see your own value, I think. And yeah, anyway. And the other one that I find very, very powerful is honouring your inner child. I think everybody should think about who they were as a child. What did they like? What did they love to do? You know, who were they? What were they missing? What didn't they get? You know, what would have helped that child? You know, and to try to give whatever you were lacking or whatever you needed then to yourself now in whatever way you can, right? And, you know, it's, for me, one of the things was to sing in the choir, right? So when I was little, I wanted to grow up and be a famous singer. I was never given any opportunity in that area by my parents. But even when I grew up, I didn't give it to myself. When I was old enough to make decisions for myself, I still didn't do it. Because by then I'd had that kind of perfectionism thing going, was, oh, well, you know, I can't do that because I won't be perfect at it, right? So when I was going through all this transformation, it just so happened, again, the universe was looking after me. It just so happened that I saw an ad for a choir that was starting up here in Newcastle. And I thought to myself, oh, I should do that. But normally I would think to myself, nah, don't be ridiculous. Who has time for that? I'm out almost every night of the week taking my children here, there, and everywhere. How am I going to find time for that? Well, this time I went, no, I'm doing it. I'm going to make that time. They'll have to deal with that. I'm going to make that day the day that I do that. So I did, and it's still challenging. It still challenges me in lots of different ways, but it is a beautiful experience, and I'm very proud of myself for doing it, because I'm giving love to the little girl that I used to be by doing that. I'd highly recommend it. Anyway, so we're almost at the end. Oh my gosh, we're almost at the end. I have no idea how I'm going for time. Anyway, so if you want more, I've written a blog post about all of this stuff and my very funny experience of being on the nomads. And that's over on my website, which is just my name, so it's easy to find. I've also started a Facebook group that anyone is welcome to join. It's called Ordinary Transformation for Midlife. I'm sure you can find it. I started it because when I got the go-ahead from Noom to be able to share my ads, I wrote that blog post, and I had a whole bunch of friends who said, oh, I've joined Noom, oh, I've joined the alcohol experiment, oh, and I thought to myself, well, instead of responding individually to everybody, if I start up this group, then we can kind of all help each other, because I'm still on my journey, right? So that's what I've done. Google Noom, Google the alcohol experiment, the High Five Challenge by Mel Robbins, that's all that sort of stuff.
Giving love to the little girl you used to be is paying off. I think that's really true. So keep on the choir. And Carolyn says, definitely not bored, Liane. You are a natural presenter and your story is inspirational. Well done. And some lovely other thank yous coming through here as well. So lots of lovely support there. I know that you would probably like a chance to reflect a little bit more on what Liane has said. And what I'd like to give you an opportunity to do in a few minutes is to go into a breakout room with maybe 2 or 3 other people and have a little bit of a chat for a few minutes about 2 things: how this presentation has impacted you, and if it's inspired you in any way to make any changes in your own wellbeing, and what it's also inspired or made you think about in terms of the other people around that you support. Would anybody like to share with the bigger group anything that you discussed with your small group there? We have, I'm able to see most of you on the screen, so if you want to give us a wave, I can ask you to unmute. Jane, would love to hear. I know there's quite a few people who'd like to share, so I'll invite a few people in just a moment. Just get you to unmute, Jane.
Why do you always pick on me? So we covered a few different things in our group, but both the other participants were spoke very highly of the high five challenge. Have I got that right? And couldn't recommend that highly enough. I've never heard of it, so I'm off to research that this afternoon. Thank you. And thank you so much, Liane. You were an amazing presenter. So take away all of those doubts that you have about yourself, because you did brilliantly.
Wonderful feedback and great takeaway, Jane. Yeah, good luck with that. Anyone else like to reflect on what they take away or what they discussed in their breakout room just now? Give me a wave if you're keen to unmute. Maybe I just had lots of friendly people waving at me before. It looked like there was a few more people who were happy to share. Anybody else like to? Dale, thank you.
Hi, I'm doing an advanced diploma of counselling, and one of the things I have to do at the moment is with group counselling is running a group session, and we have to plan the session and then execute one of the sessions of a group of 4. And one of them is self-care. So I just really appreciate everything that Liane's shared today, and the high five challenge. I'm also going to go and research that. But yeah, I just love the universality of what you've shared, that hello, yes, we've all sort of been there and thought that, and that weight challenge thing, and who am I, what do I want to be, and what am I going to do to get there. So I really appreciate what you've shared, and yes, that's really going to help my self-care presentation, some of those things that you've shared today. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dal, for sharing. I really appreciate that, and good that the timing works so well for your assignment that you're doing also. Fantastic. Anyone else like to do a final reflection on the takeaway from today, or how you might be able to apply or adapt and use it in your settings?
I'm happy to say something if nobody else wants to.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just wanted to thank you, Liane, because I think you pretty much spoke my story to some degree, except for the transformation part. Although I've done some transformation in other areas, more so probably this, my career rather than myself. And I think it is that time, being 51, having had a number of traumas, and hiding behind those traumas in terms of drinking and not eating and not looking after myself and putting the kids first and all those things. I think everything you said was amazing. It inspired me. And I think, I think there was just so much common sense in that, in a lot of ways, especially that all or nothing thinking, which is something that has definitely held me back. So, and I mean, I'm a therapist as well, so I teach other people, but sometimes it is hard to apply some things to yourself. It's okay to say it, you give it to people and you hope that they take it as well. But I think I'll definitely take a lot from what you said today and shared, and I look forward to getting on the link. However, I only got to the last part of menopausal, but that's okay. I'll find it. I'll find your story somewhere by Google. It's all good. Thank you.
Thanks, Giovanna. Great feedback there, and lovely it spoke to you. I could see so many people nodding in self-recognition of so much of what Liane was sharing today. And you will get a copy or a version of the slides. Liane, I didn't actually check with you, but definitely the access to the Facebook group and others will be certainly available for those who might be interested in following Liane up. I also wanted to give you an opportunity for any questions that you might have for Liane or about her presentation. And I think the easiest way of doing that will be using the chat today. So if there's anything you would like to ask, please pop it into the chat now. and we won't be able to maybe get to all the questions, but we will be able to get to some of them. So if there's anything in particular you'd like to ask or have clarified, find out more about, please feel free to ask some questions now, and we've got a little bit of time for that before we move into the final phase. Just as we're waiting for any questions to be typed in and come through that I can read out. I know there was a few other people waving who were keen to share. I wanted to give you an opportunity finally, if you'd like to share anything that you take away from today or anything from your groups that you'd like to reflect on as well. Is there anything anybody else would like to offer? Anna, thanks.
Thank you. Well, I may just go through a couple of things I shared with my group. So first of all, thank you, Liane, for sharing your experience. I found myself in a few of the examples you've given, especially the singing bit. So I was a girl with no confidence for a long time on a journey of finding myself. I finally started making those decisions, and once I decide something, I'm quite determined. It was just really accepting myself as God's creature and really, you know, saying, this is me, this is what I have, there's not another duplicate of me, so I better accept myself. Because on doing counseling, I find that to give others the best of the experience or the best of you, you must be in love with yourself. And I'm not talking about narcissism like this culture today is promoting, but accepting yourself enough and loving yourself enough to be able to be that shining light to others and to help others. And I really think that giving love to the little girl, like you said, Liane, I wrote that down, that I used to be, and fixing those things and catching up with those things that I really wanted to do then and I didn't have a chance to. It's really when with the light bulbs in my head, it's really been a positive experience listening to this, and joining this webinar is really a good decision. So thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Really great feedback and lovely self-reflections there as well. I know, Christine, you had been waving for a little bit. Do you want to, and just there's a couple of questions coming through, which is great. Feel free to put them in the chat if you'd like to. But Christine, would you like to share?
Thank you. I was just quickly going to say that I'm very excited to be here, and I am in the choir with Liane and feel very similar sentiments. And we've already started the alcohol experiment, day 3. I mentioned it to my mum and to my daughter, who's 27. And, you know, I'm very aware that it's one of those things you get home at the end of the day and you think, I deserve this, or whatever your, rationale is. And then nothing else happens. You know, you have it and then I'll watch television or I do nothing. And so I'm really excited to see how I can embrace some life again when that's not the thing that's numbing everything. I realize it will probably open up a few other things, which will be challenging, but I'm very excited and very grateful to Liane.
Thanks, Christine. Lovely to have a fellow choir member here as well. Beautiful. We do have one question that's come through, Liane, for you. And it's a question from Caroline about Lighthouse in Newcastle. Could you share any more about that?
Oh, okay. Well, thanks everyone for all those lovely comments and stuff. And I'm glad that people feel a little bit inspired by some of the stories that I've told, because that's kind of the whole point. Now, Lighthouse Arts in Newcastle is in Newcastle. They've got a big lighthouse on called Nobby's, and there are a bunch of cottages there, and they've been opened up for artists to use, and I applied to for an artist residency there, and it gives me 1 day a week for 6 weeks in the cottage, and that just enables me to concentrate on the manuscript, because let's face it, if I have to squeeze it into my world in any other way, it probably won't happen. So the fact that I've got this 6 weeks means that I can totally focus. It gives me kind of permission to totally focus on doing that for 6 weeks. So hopefully I will actually get a book written. It'd be nice.
And when you do, Liane, we'll definitely be promoting it among our network, and especially for the people here today. So thank you again so much for that really inspiring presentation, and we wish you really well in your journey. You're welcome to stay with us for the last 10 minutes as well. Just a few more things to go before we do our giveaway of our free webinar today. And we also give you the link to be able to get your quiz for today and PD certificate. Just wanted to share some of the upcoming events that we have. I'm going to be running a free information evening next Tuesday, and that's around a 200-hour graduate certificate in play and art therapy. We've got 2 intakes next year in March and in July. We've also got an online workshop next week from Beate Stella, who's a wonderful social worker who works in this space. And she's going to be presenting on supporting grieving children with creative therapy interventions and practical strategies. That's a 3-hour training. That's $150 on Thursday. In the spring, which is just around the corner, I'm going to be running a creative therapy for children with trauma 2-day workshop, 3 hours each day, early September, Monday, Tuesday. Sue Jennings, who is a fabulous play therapist and drama therapist from the UK. She's written lots of wonderful books, and she's going to be presenting from 5 till 8 on Wednesday, the 7th of September, on infant mental health and messy play. And our next free event, which is coming up next month in this series, is movement as an act of self-kindness. So it really dovetails very well in, and Liane, you might even want to join us for that one, because I know that's your next step that we're talking about today as well. So that will be on the 19th of September from 12 to 1:15, and registrations are open for that one now as well. That's a free one as well if you'd like to join us. So in just a moment, I'm going to give away this 90-minute webinar. If you're able to join us next Monday night from 7 to 8:30, this is a live one that won't be recorded. It's for those who might be interested in running online groups, other therapy groups, or even training groups, and would like some practical skills and things to think about in preparing for running those groups. It also has applications for people who are running groups, even not online. So if you're interested and available, we've got a few spots left in that one. Or if you know of a friend you might like to gift it to, you can do that too. So thank you very much for all being here. And thank you especially, Liane, for your inspiring presentation today. It's got wonderful feedback, and I really look forward to seeing you all next time. So thank you all again for being here. Take care.